Dobry dzień. Wow. This is more than I bargained for. Applause after the first two words. Today I'm going to talk to you about the country I'm from, Gibraltar, and the very special things we're doing in the crypto world. Who am I? Unlike most of you in this room, I approach this from a very, very different perspective. I am probably a lot older than most of you. I've had a career with a traditional consulting firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, working across a number of countries, primarily involved in mergers and acquisition in traditional industries. Industries like metals, real estate, etc. Over the last few months, however, because of what's happening in Gibraltar, I've watched with fascination this new world that is opening in front of us, particularly because of the way Gibraltar has embraced blockchain technology. Just to give you a sense of how much we're doing there, I am the CEO of a firm called Line Group. Line Group is associated with the biggest law firm in Gibraltar. We have many, many high net worth individuals, people worth millions to billionaires, who we manage their funds for. And they are asking me every day, Mark, what do you know about cryptocurrency? At the same time, we have lots of companies, international companies, startups, coming to Gibraltar with a view to setting up their operations there and doing their ICO from there. Just to give you a sense, sitting on my desk, or having passed through my desk in the last 3 or 4 months, I've looked at 30 white papers for ICOs, totaling $1 billion of aspirational funds to be raised. Many of those white papers are actually not worth the paper they're written on, but some of them are truly aspirational. Today, I'm going to talk about how Gibraltar is tackling this issue, the quality of white papers, the quality of ICOs, and the regulation of blockchain businesses. So what I want to do is share my excitement about what is happening in Gibraltar. Where is Gibraltar? Some of you may not know. What you can see there in that photograph there is where the Atlantic and the Mediterranean join. If you look at that chart, that photograph there, you've got Europe on one side of the map, Asia on the other. This is Gibraltar here, this tiny bit of land, 7 square kilometers. That's all we are. If we're like this, Russia is the size of this room. Absolutely tiny. Over there, the mountains, you can see that's Africa, 20 kilometers away. This side, we've got Spain, our beloved neighbor, the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. So a very strategic location historically, and now it's becoming strategic for very different reasons. Our economy is small but perfectly formed. In 2016, we had the 3rd highest GDP per capita in the world after Qatar and Luxembourg. Why? A number of contributing factors. First of all, we operate under British common law. Our highest court of appeal is the UK. Very low rates of taxation by Western standards. Profits tax for Gibraltar-derived profits, 10%. We are an EU compliance financial centre. Easy access to London, 2.5 hours flight from Gibraltar. We have a small airport despite our size. Or from Malaga, 5 hours to Moscow. Near zero unemployment. In fact, we have zero unemployment. We have 25,000 jobs in Gibraltar. Half of them are carried out by people who live in Spain and come in every day. We have absolutely zero unemployment. Many of those people, by the way, are from Central and Eastern Europe, serving our biggest sector, which is the e-gaming sector. As a measure of our success as a finance centre, 1 in 5 UK companies, cars, 20% of the cars in the UK, which of course is a country of 70 million people, are actually insured out of Gibraltar. We have the largest bunkering port in the Western Mediterranean, so we have a very diverse, very stable economy with overemployment. We have twice as many jobs in the economy as we can serve with Gibraltarians. Notwithstanding that, we've taken a very brave steps, I think, and we're very proud of this in Gibraltar, in the in regulating blockchain. Why? Because we're convinced about the massive opportunities and the growth it can bring to our country, our nation. We do acknowledge the negativity that exists out there regarding cryptocurrencies. We are also convinced that the good players in the space actually welcome regulation. Why do I say that? Because we see similarities with the e-gaming sector. Let me tell you a little story. 10 years ago, when electronic gaming for sports betting, etc., was unregulated, Gibraltar said, there's an opportunity for us. Companies in the gaming sector welcomed regulation because it meant they could go to market, they could do IPOs in London, they could earn respectability. So we took the lead and put in regulations for companies headquartered in Gibraltar to be regulated under a strict set of rules that became internationally acknowledged. And today we are probably the e-gaming center of the world. That's probably an exaggeration. Certainly in Europe, we house some of the biggest e-gaming companies in Europe. I said we have 25,000 jobs in Gibraltar, half of which are served by people living outside Gibraltar or from outside Gibraltar. 4,500 of those people are employed in the e-gaming sector. We see some similarities. First of all, the underlying use of technology, albeit we've got more modern technology with blockchain. Secondly, the need to import resources. And thirdly, the benefits of bringing regulation to players who want to play by rules and be seen to be playing by rules and earn respectability. So I'm going to discuss 5 compelling reasons as to why people in this industry also consider Gibraltar. First of all, our history, our taxes, our laws. Secondly, the fact we have DLT regulation coming in as from 1st of January 2018. Thirdly, ICO regulations in the first quarter of 2018. Fourthly, the Gibraltar blockchain exchange that will come into fruition soon. And finally, the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. I'm going to talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. First of all, our laws, taxes, and history. I already said the only British common law jurisdiction in mainland Europe. People in international business, by and large, feel very comfortable with British law. We've got absolute independence of the judiciary. In fact, the ultimate court of appeal is the UK, not Gibraltar itself. Strong track record in regulatory regimes in both finance and e-gaming, which are internationally respected. Currently, we have passporting rights into Europe, into the European Union. What does that mean? That if you have a license to operate in either of those sectors, finance or e-gaming, you can market your products without any further licensing required within the EU. You may ask, what about Brexit? Yes, if Brexit happens, we will leave the European Union. There are contingency plans to address that through setting up branches of Gibraltar businesses elsewhere. We have, as I said, a very tax-friendly regime, and most importantly, I think, we have a government which is very pro-business. And that has been the case regardless of the party in power for the last 30 years. We're small, we need to be nimble, we need to be creative. We have no natural resources other than the sun and the sea, but we're very small for tourism. So we are a very, very business-oriented jurisdiction. Let's talk about DLT regulation. This is a very, very exciting new development for us. Last March, Gibraltar announced that it was going to regulate, effective 1st of January 2018, DLT businesses or blockchain businesses which were providing either storage of value or the transfer of value. The actual regulations were published in September. Since the announcement was made in March, we have been absolutely inundated with requests to set up business in Gibraltar, quite overwhelmingly. We've been very, very surprised. When they looked at regulation, they said, well, this is a fast-changing world. Let's be honest, no one's really experts in this. Yeah, this is all very new, and we're all learning as we go along, and at each conference I attend, I learn new facts. So they said, look, what we have to have is very broad principles, that people can follow, and over time we'll issue guidelines, maybe we'll issue more regulations. The guidelines, the principles, some of them are very simple: honesty and integrity. We expect players in the space to be able to demonstrate at the sponsor level and at the way the business is conducted, honesty and integrity, and in that sense, reputation of the founders is incredibly important. Secondly, that the business, through the ICO process and beyond, conducts itself in a way that is fair and not misleading in communications with customers. I'll talk about a bit later on in the context of ICOs. Thirdly, that the business conducts itself so that it is robust financially, and without forgetting that many of these businesses are startups, which implies a certain level of risk, but notwithstanding that at least it is managed in a very effective financial way. 4, effective, diligent processes in the area of risk management, not only the management of the operations, but the management thinking about customers. 5, protection of customer assets where we're responsible for them. So, for example, if you're taking cash from customers, not for your own business, but for holding their value, that you hold it in accounts which cannot be touched by the business. 6, effective corporate governance. That means looking at a number of things. First of all, for the regulator to be happy, the business has to be headquartered in Gibraltar. Doesn't mean all your operations have to be there, but it has to be headquartered in Gibraltar. But you have to have a board which is balanced. It is not, for example, exclusively made up of very young technology people, but you have financial expertise, you have strategic expertise, you have a mix of age, and you have diversity on the board. And also that you have at least the 4 I's principle respected, i.e. that you never have one person managing the business on their own, so you have checks and balances within the business itself. Clearly, in a technology business, we'll be looking at very high standards of security and IT security and sustainability of systems. 8thly, systems to protect, prevent, detect, and disclose financial crime. This is very similar to what's expected of the financial services industry, and then some plans to make sure funds are in place in the case of insolvency of the business. Further to that, not only are we going to regulate the businesses themselves, but very recently, the government of Gibraltar, like many other jurisdictions, China included, concerned express about ICOs and says, look, we don't like the way this is going, but unlike any other jurisdiction I know, we're planning a regulatory framework covering the sale of tokens, which will come into place in Q1 of 2018. We don't know what the shape of that looks like. The rules are being designed as we speak, but you can bet your bottom dollar that it's going to be very similar to the principles laid out in the DLT regulation. From my perspective, and this is very much from the point of view of someone who's been brought up in the financial world as opposed to technology and looked at IPOs, etc., in these 30 white papers I've seen, even the best ones, talk very little about the business post-ICO. Most businesses say, we're going to sell these tokens, this is what we're going to do with the money. We're going to spend 45% on research and development, 6% on hardware, so much on software, and so much on marketing. End of story. That's not enough. How is the buyer of the token how does the buyer of the token know there's going to be something post that to make the token valuable? Very poor articulation in most of the white papers of the specific risks of the projects and the more general risks about investing in tokens and ICOs. So, and last but not least, there's very poor consideration when I've spoken to some of these clients about actually, is what I'm issuing, this token or this coin, is it actually not caught by securities laws that exist already? And even if they're not caught by securities laws in the country of issuance, i.e., for example, Gibraltar, if you're marketing it into the UK, Germany, or whatever, are we sure we're not caught by securities laws in those countries? Very, very important. A further very exciting development in Gibraltar is the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange. the Gibraltar blockchain exchange will be a stock exchange, basically, where ICOs can happen, they can access public money, and it will be a cryptocurrency exchange. Its unique selling proposition, unique selling points relative to other exchanges that already exist, it will be regulated. It will be regulated under the new Gibraltar regulations. It is privately owned, and in the interest of full disclosure, I am a very, very small shareholder in the Gibraltar, in GBX. It is privately owned. It is working closely with the regulator and government to come up with a model that works and is internationally appealing. To invest in the exchange, people will have to comply with anti-money laundering and KYC standards that brings a further level of credibility and quality to the exchange. How to get onto the exchange? There will be a number of qualified members, professional service firms that people who want to do ICOs in the exchange will go to. They will do the due diligence on the company, involving everything, the business plan, the quality of the token, the marketability of the token, the underlying technology, security measures, etc., etc. And it will, in a sense, the sponsor will become responsible to the exchange for making sure the firm coming onto the exchange is of the right quality. The Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange is referring to this as the crypto harbor, the safe haven for people investing in this sector. The issuers of the tokens will benefit from having a quality stamp, it being the only exchange in the world which is regulated to a high standard. And last but not least, the fifth reason, and this is coming further on in 2018, is the parent of the Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange is the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. The Gibraltar Stock Exchange is a relatively new undertaking. It's been in operation for the last 2 years. It is primarily a place where smaller companies issue debt from across the world. But what it will do is it will be the first stock exchange in the world which is entirely digitalized. So the acquisition, transfer, etc. of securities will be on the chain as the principal, as the only register. This is revolutionary in the sense it uses the chain, speed to markets, very fast execution, very low cost for investors. So with these five new dimensions to Gibraltar, we have a unique ecosystem, I think, for the blockchain community, either to do business or to raise finance. We're a very small country, 30,000 people, 7.5 kilometers squared, and it's almost, frankly, a little bit embarrassing to start here in Russia, which is, I don't know how many times bigger, but we're only 7.5 kilometers squared, and yet we're getting the attention of the world. I had a Chinese investor come to Gibraltar last week, and I was having dinner with him. He's an old world investor, real estate. And I asked him, why are you interested in Gibraltar? You've got so many opportunities in China. He said, but you're a small nation, but a big stage. And I think we really are set to do that in this space, in the blockchain space. We're open for quality business. We're only interested in quality business. We're not interested in business looking out to make quick buck. If you want to know more, this is me, Marcus Voysey, a line group. And for those of you who can write fast enough or take a photograph, that's my number. I'd be very, very happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for the excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And we have some questions for the regulatory part of the system. How do you think the implementation of regulations is going to hold the development of blockchain projects or the expansion of cryptocurrencies in the worldwide?
Well, first of all, remember, players in this space don't have to be regulated. They will choose to be regulated in Gibraltar when it suits them. Yeah. So we're too small, I think, to make a massive dent in the natural trends in this space. But what we do is for those who seek to be regulated because they think it's good for their marketing, they operate at a high standard, the quasi or virtually financial services institutions, it will accelerate their growth, their potential, and give them a stamp of approval, a seal of approval that will improve their marketability. But I don't think Gibraltar itself and the regulation coming from Gibraltar will halt the development of cryptocurrencies or blockchain-enabled businesses. In fact, over time, I think it's inevitable that there will be a lot more regulation,
Yeah.
across the world, not only Gibraltar.
Yeah, and speaking about the regulatory part, AML and KYC procedures are required. What are the other features that are going to be implemented in regulations?
As I said, there's 9 dimensions to it. One of the most important is how robust the business plan is post-ICO, so that there's visibility around what happens to the business post-ICO, the quality of governance, board of directors, breadth of board of directors, the way these businesses communicate with clients or the suppliers of finance, be it through directly or through tokens. So there'll be a lot more transparency, a lot more of the good habits, if you like, old habits developed through stock market activity, etc., without it being the same as being on the stock market, because that would be almost kill it in its tracks. So I like to use the term, it'll be IPO light, but time will tell how that develops. Yeah? But certainly honesty, transparency, business planning, strong management are the keys to it.
Sure. And you spoke about the exchange, right? Any time, estimated time is going to be launching?
It'll actually be operational by 31st December 2017.
Oh, that's close.
But in a very, let's say, testing way, test mode, in the first quarter of 2018, and certainly in the first 6 months of 2018, we expect to see the first ICOs coming through the GBX.
Oh, great. And can you name the main advantages of GBX?
Well, GBX will have the principal advantage of GBX is that through going through a regulatory process, companies doing ICOs will be able to market themselves as with a stamp of approval. We have been vetted through a filter, a quality filter. Our business plan has been looked at, and even after those filters, we are being allowed to do an ICO through this exchange. So that's one dimension. Secondly, the exchange will operate on the blockchain, so speed of market to market, etc.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
And one more question. Not question.
No question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, спасибо. Спасибо за внимание.